Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff. Welcome to the Corporate Service Committee meeting of the 15th of May 2026. I'll call this meeting open at 9:07. We've had a few technical troubles with the screen today, and we'll start off with that. Have I got any applications for attending via video link, Mr.
Mr. Chair, just the one from Councillor Stoles. He has requested he attend via video link due to medical reasons, and we've got him online at the moment.
Could I have a mover there? Councillor Fraser, seconded myself. All those in favour, carried. And Councillor Stoles, welcome to the meeting.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, from the other side of the Shire.
Thank you. Have I got any apologies?
Just the one from Councillor Earl Shields.
Thank you. I've got a mover. Move Councillor Fraser, seconding Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, carried. And disclosures of interest today.
Nil received so far, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And public participation.
There's none registered for today either.
Very good. Having gone through those procedures, if we could move forward into the business items. And Mr. Phelps, if you want to run us through the Finance Committee reports, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome all. So we'll go through the financial summary and investment report on page 3. Down the bottom there, you will note that we've, to the end of the 30th of April 26, we have negative variance to budget of $430,000 compared to a positive variance of $138,000 in the March month. Just working through a lot of the ups and downs within the operations of council. So overall, our operating revenue is up by about $1.8 million. A number of items in here. We have done a fair few votes this month to balance off items within the budget, bringing that back to reality, and we'll be doing further votes coming through for May. So just as we're coming into the end of the financial year. The main contributors coming through in the operating revenue is our people and culture is still up by about $100,000. We've started the process of reallocating that $99,000 across the different areas within council. It relates to the traineeship. So we've got a number of traineeships within parks and facilities, as well as civil areas as well. Gumman Place, its revenue is lower by $48,000. It's starting to feel the punch now of the actual facility being closed, with the residents departing the facility, so it's declined over the last 4 months. Early learning and family daycare budget is higher by $88,000, so it's maintaining its strong utilisation, which has been really good. And again, we'll have a vote coming through to recognise that into the mix. Caravans and camping, up by $57,000, mainly in regards to the caravan park. Caravan park has been very buoyant at the moment over in Merriwar, which has been pleasing. The camping sites are starting to drop off a little tiny bit, not a lot of revenue downturn in that area, but we have seen a spike within the caravan parking area. Real estate revenue was up by $125,000. We've maintained high commercial rental coming through. We've switched over now the Hunter Warbirds into the real estate area, which we've done a vote for coming through for the current period. And also we've had a couple of other commercial ventures that have come through, which has obtained some rental coming into the mix. Sale yards is up by the nearly $800,000 in revenue, which is really good. But there is the downside of possible destocking coming through, so we may feel that pain coming in for the first 6 to 12 months for next year.
I don't think there's any doubt that this is just a temporary spike, and
Yep.
it is an aberration.
Yep.
And I think there's still an underlying issue with sale yards. The income is generated from it. It's, I won't say profitability.
Yeah.
Because that's not the correct term to use, but the fact that there's still some way to go in actually achieving cost recovery on that facility. And this,
correct.
I don't think we should take any great encouragement from this number, because it is very temporary.
Yes, no. Through the chair, yes, that's the feeling within management as well. And we know that it's only just a cyclic event happening at the moment, which there is an upside and then there'll be a downside attached to it in some respect. The only thing with that is hopefully with the downside we'll be able to maintain our cost to a level that keeps it within our budget regimes coming through. The waste facility is higher by $250,000, so it's continuing to get landfill collection revenue, which has been quite buoyant, as well as our annual access charges. So we'll see that coming through, and we've done a vote in regards to those coming through in this month. General purpose revenue is pretty well online. It's about 50,000 up at the moment, which was pleasing, a little bit higher in the annual rating side of things. Public cemeteries is up by $70,000 with that continued activity in site plots and interment. It's maintained its level pretty well from a spike that happened in the first 6 months. So we've brought in a vote for that coming through in the current month. Building control and town planning, it's higher by 52,000. So continuing increase in our building and planning statutory fees, which has been pleasing. So there's been a bit of activity in regards to that. So that's been pleasing overall. White Park revenue is still down by 55,000. So there has been improvement over the last few months. However, we still want to see that revenue stream increase more substantially, especially going into the next financial year. Aerodrome revenue is higher by 71,000, just increased activity at the airport, which has been very pleasing. So it's generated a higher than budget number. Sewer revenue is up by 78,000. Had a bit of a spike in our private works, which has been pleasing, as well as interest income holding in there. And water revenue is up by 100,000, so we've still got a little bit higher in consumption fees, not very much because we took up a vote in the March period, but our annual access fee and interest income is up as well. So overall, as you can see, there's a lot of ups and downs there, but overall it comes back to that $1.8 million increase. Down negative to budget is our non-operating revenue and expenditure. It's predominantly driven by the internal fleet hire. It's stayed relatively consistent over the last probably 3 months. So we'll continue to look at that and further review the forecast to the end of the year. We are reviewing those internal fleet and as well as the hire charges in order to gain a little bit more funds coming through. That effectively will go across the expenditure within the organisation, and especially into roads. Moving down into our operating expenditure, here we're overspent by about $700,000. So there's a lot of movers and shakers within the actual the 700,000 negative variance. So we'll go through them at a high level. So overall, our corporate entity admin costs is lower by about nearly $800,000, of which over 500,000 of that relates to our fleet management. So you've got lower fleet charges, but you also got lower fleet costs, which brings it back to a bit of a positive. But information technology is also lower by 200,000. So the less use of consultants coming through has been pleasing in that respect. However, there is some timing in regards to some of those costs coming through as we see. Community services lower by 130,000. So just with the vacancies within the community services team, they've changed their focus now with some of their programs. We've put on two new staff members in our youth intervention area, which is now funded through the community services area. So we've taken up some votes coming through for the last couple of months. Government Place costs are higher by 336,000. Those costs now will drop away significantly as there's no residents in the facility, so it's only just the bare staff costs until the staff have finalised their service within the facility, but all agency staff has been now shut down. Early learning centre costs, as with the income being up a little bit, our costs are also up with additional staff on there to look after the kids, so it's up by about 57,000. Youth services costs are lower by 58,000. The early intervention side of things, we've brought in a vote coming through for that into the current period. The EIPP now, effectively, that program has ceased and reverted back across to the community services youth program that's been undertaken since September. Camping and caravan, with the income in our costs going up significantly, also we've got higher costs coming in revenue. Our costs are also higher by about $40,000. We've just reviewed our annual rates charges and the waste access charge on that. So there'll be adjustment to that because I think we're overcharging ourselves coming through for a number of services out of Moonam flat camping grounds. So we've made the adjustment into the May period. Private works costs are higher by $31,000. Obviously, we will recover that through invoicing coming through and chase those down over the next few months. So we've seen a bit of activity in that space, especially with a lot of pothole fixing up and also grading of roads. Sale yards costs, as with the income going up, also the costs have gone up with the number of head going through the facility. So we've got a little bit higher in costs. Tourism promotion is higher by 122. Now we've done a vote coming through. This is just to allocate some time to our tourism coordinator, who we didn't actually, there was an error in the budget. We had that in our Hunter Warbirds costs, but we've now allocated some money into that from savings that we generated from within that directorate coming through. Stormwater maintenance costs are lower by $81,000. It's lower than expected maintenance to date. Now we've got a push at the moment for going around and doing a lot of stormwater maintenance coming through to put our guys to work for this last 2 months of the year. Waste management costs are higher by $366. Predominantly timing. So we've got a timing issue coming through. Our revenue streams are up a little bit, but our costs coming through, we've paid some costs earlier than what we anticipated in the budget. So it's only a timing issue. We're pretty well on track with the actual months against the actual costs that have been incurred. So it's a timing thing from a budgeting perspective. Governance costs are lower by $96,000. It's just been lower general management costs coming through with some staff on extended leave. Our health costs have been lower by $41,000 just with staff vacancies again. So we've had, it's probably a theme coming through that we've had a few vacancies coming into the mix over the course of the last 9 months, last 10 months, beg your pardon. Public convenience is higher by $53,000. The cost of servicing a lot of our amenities across the Shire has been higher than we anticipated. We have allocated more money into the budget next year to cover that off, to make sure that we don't overspend our budget next year. Street lighting is lower by $36,000, which will be a saving, I think, by the end of the year. So that's been quite pleasing. We changed out a lot of our street lighting with LEDs. That has been a benefit to council with lower usage costs. Town planning costs again are lower by the $144,000. Pretty well we have got staff vacancies within the area in town planning. However, we've also had lower than expected costs for a couple of the programs that we have in there, which is they're both fully funded, which is accelerated DAs and Energy Co programs. So we've done some votes inside this month to allocate the costs as well as the revenue that we're expected to get from it. So it's an offsetter. Building costs are lower by $82,000 again. Again, staff vacancies within our building certifier and surveying roles. So we're looking at trying to fill that role at this point in time. We've just got casuals covering a bit of the void that we have there. Animal costs are lower by $86,000. Again, staff vacancies, there's 2 rangers and 2 staff members, a ranger and a compliance officer. Majority of the year we've only had 1 role, had no roles filled, but we filled 1 in January. So, but we still got a 1 role that's still looking to be filled at this point in time. We have got coverage across a couple of the other outdoor staff that do look after a lot of the animal control areas and do undertake those activities. However, but we've still got 1 position down. Local government regulation and enforcement costs are higher by 37. Cost higher here, we contracted a compliance officer while we had no one in that role. So effectively we've paid a little bit extra than what the normal wages would be. Park gardens and parks and gardens costs are higher by $80,000. We've had higher than expected costs coming through to service our parks and gardens as well as tree management. So we've had a fair bit of tree management happening as well as staff training. So we've undertaken a fair bit of staff training coming into the mix. Now some of that staff training will be the traineeships that we've undertaken as well, which we will be allocating a vote probably in May for that cost coming through. So that'll give a little bit extra cost against that staff training area. Public library costs are higher by about $58,000. It's up by about probably 8% overall. It's been higher in salaries and forward purchasing of the reading catalogue. We're continuing to monitor those costs to try and bring those back down to parity of the budget. Just with a change in our structure, or not our structure, but our personnel within the library. We've had one lady who's been there for a long time retire at the beginning of the year, and we've just got a new management style within the library, so that'll just be taking a while to bed down. Sporting grounds is higher by $260,000. It's really jumped out of the ground, so it's really had a lot of costs in regards to the servicing, plus also utility costs, the water going on to facilities and so forth. So it's increased significantly. Swimming pools is a bit of a concern moving forward with our maintenance of those facilities and the utility costs being so high. Unfortunately, we have some leakages in the pools at this point in time, which is creating a bit of a cost nightmare, usage of water, as well as the pumps working overtime to do that. We did have some painting of the two pools in Scone and Murrundi, which is included in the overspend at the moment. However, we need to monitor and we need to look for a solution in regards to trying to plug the pools effectively, so that they're not leaking as much coming through. Aerodrome costs lower by $70,000. The operating model is working really well out there. We've got our parks and garden staff going out there and doing a good clean of the area over the course of the next couple of weeks, as they've got an event coming up, so like mid June, I believe. So we're just going through that work and undertaking that. Footpath maintenance is lower by $34,000. We've actually engaged our guys to go out and start doing a bit of grinding, do a bit of footpath maintenance coming through, and get them to work in regards to that. State roads costs are lower by $42,000. It's pretty well running on budget, which has been pleasing. We've have a number of projects that are still to be completed by the end of the year. We've just received another one for about $400,000. So we'll be doing work right up until June, effectively, from Transport. We haven't heard from Transport whether or not there's going to be a yell out to say, hey, we've got this money to spend. However, we're anticipating that it may come in June. Local roads admin costs are higher by $178,000. We've gone through and reviewed the salaries there, looked at the cost allocations and seeing whether or not we can move some of that to our capital areas. Local roads and regional roads, higher by $1.2 million. That's the biggest spend coming through. We've done some votes inside to move some of the monies around within those budget areas to try and counteract the maintenance side of things, but the maintenance has been a lot higher than what budget has depicted. So we're continuing to monitor that. We're doing only the bare minimum of our maintenance regimes coming through to the end of June, and moving a lot of our guys on to other maintenance areas like stormwater, footpaths and the like, and also engaging them into capital works that are grant funded coming through. So we're looking at that and bringing it through, but it's a little bit overspent at this point in time, and we can't see that coming back. I think that's one where our savings within the budget will have to be used to offset that overspend coming through. But we're fully mindful of trying to minimise the overspend. Flood restoration works, lower by 132,000. We haven't heard anything back on the two new events, the restoration work for 12/12 and 12/16. The applications are in, we're just waiting on a tick, and some of our guys can actually go to work on some of that maintenance work. So we're looking at and we're contacting Reconciliation Australia to actually try and push them along to at least get one of those over the line, so we can actually get some of the guys out to do that work.
I do assume that all of that local and regional road maintenance is in the right column, and we can't distribute that.
Correct, yes. No, we've gone through the
Some sort.
process. Yeah,
Yep.
we've gone through the
That's
process of
finalised. Yep.
moving all any renewable works that we've got there across into the capital area, and effectively that's just general maintenance, unfortunately. Transport auxiliaries costs are lower by 30K. Costs are lower in line marking, which the guys are going out doing that at this point in time. It's a contractor that does the line marking for us. So now that the reseal program was finalised in March, they can go on and do some of the line marking. And water costs are high by 191,000. We're going through continuing to review our mains and pumping stations to see whether or not there's any renewals in there that we can bring through, but it's just pretty well the cost of a lot of breakages coming into the mix. With mains, it's a lot of our older network that we are actually going through and having to fix a lot of breaks at this point in time. That then is earmarked then for renewal. So if there's a lot of breaks in one area, we'll start the renewal factor coming through and upgrading those mains. So as you can see, the main contributor to the overspend at the moment is that local and regional roads area coming into the mix. Moving into our capital area, here we've got Campbell's Corner development. It's higher by about 529. The works of compliance and restoration programs have come through. We've got a vote coming through to bring in the funding allocation for that into the current period.
Would we, if councillors agree, would it be possible to bring forward a bit of a report on what's happening down at Campbell's Corner financially there? That's quite a significant blowout. I think we should have a bit more oversight than what we probably currently are.
Through you, Mr Chair, Matt Pringle is working on something. I'm not sure he's going to have it ready for the May report period, but I've asked him to prepare something on that because I know it's going to be of interest to councillors. I think Mr Phelps might be able to confirm that's still within the funding allocation, no? Is that...
Still within funding allocations coming through. So we're still continuing with the project. The work scope coming through though, that's the factor that we're trying to ascertain where it's up to, what the actual's been done, what's been completed, and that then will determine whether or not it's under or over budget effectively.
Yeah, and so that budget, the over budget item there is still within the grant fund.
Correct. Yeah, and it includes both the facade works plus the compliance works within the building itself.
Yeah.
So the facade works outside.
No, it'd be good to see the report into that.
Moving down to our Christmas lights, obviously didn't spend any of that, so we've actually done a vote for that and moved it around. Landfill compliance is higher by about 32,000. We had to do some investigation boreholes for EPA for ground monitoring for a couple of our sites, so unfortunately we've had to entertain that. There'll be a bit more cost in regards to that coming through. I think there are about 100,000 in total.
That's a fairly big issue going forward, the waste leakage, and we do have a site that's right on top of basically a watercourse, and the long-term planning of those sites is a bit worrisome. Will we get some sort of report maybe back to the infrastructure committee on the groundwater monitoring parameters as they come back?
Through you, Mr Chair, it probably sits with our environment team, which is part of Matt Pringle's team. So I might, if that's something you're looking for some more information on, I might ask Matt to see if he can pull that together and maybe provide you with a bit more of an update on the longer term works that's been going into both the transfer stations and land acquisition for expansion of Aberdeen.
Yeah, look, yes, I've misspoken there, but I think it's also probably of interest to this space too, because that's a possible huge financial issue in the future with those facilities. So it'll be good to see.
Okay, White Park development costs. All the new powered sites are all done. We've effectively done a lot of finalisation of works. We've got a vote coming through inside the votes that covers off all the expenditure there, as well as the grant and contributions coming through. Rural road resheeting is higher by 110,000. With the vote movement of the votes from the roads area, we've allocated an extra $150,000 towards that resheeting program. We're only getting minor works now to the end of the financial year, so it should remain underneath that revised budget. And the Scone CBD, we had to do some works for the heavy pedestrian walking area down the street there, so that was an extra $170,000. So
Questions without notice, sorry. Just on resheeting, and I know Councillor Ryan's here today as part of the Rural Roads Committee. There is quite a few roads around at the moment that desperately do need some resheeting work before it. I think we're going into a drought cycle, which is nice. So we've probably got about 3 years in it, but roads like Cliflands Road and out Penbroke Road, I know doesn't have much gravel left on it. I just wonder where we're up to and where potential future funding can advance resheeting activities over the next 3 years.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, I know the new director has been taking quite an interest in the gravel roads program. As you can see here, we're already overspent, and there's still a number of roads that we know require it. I think there's a further allocation in the next year's budget, Mr. Phelps, to improve some of that. So we're focusing. Look, next year's budget really is a focus on roads and ensuring that we've got enough money for sporting grounds and public conveniences, because they're the two areas that we're currently overspending in that space, and we know roads is the other big issue. So we're trying to do our best to focus the budget on that. It just means between now, so what's 6.5 weeks, between now and the 1st of July, we're just trying to keep our belts as tight as possible.
Yeah, I've heard there's been a few keys confiscated, just to carry that out, which is understandable. But I think, and we discussed this at nauseum, but going forward, we really need to find some own source funding or outside funding outside of what we currently have to make this happen. It's not going to happen without that funding, but I think there's certain vehicles around that can add to that, but resheeting of these gravel roads is I think a grand priority in the next 5 years.
And certainly we're looking, Mr. Chair, at some of the VPA funding and some of it is actually dedicated to gravel road maintenance through the VPA arrangements, so we'll certainly use that. And a couple of the large operators are also looking at making, I guess, personal private contributions to undertake gravel road maintenance outside of the normal schedule, so that their employees can access their facilities. Thanks.
So effectively overall, as you can see there, it's 430 negative. So overall, we have a number of votes coming through in the April period, just to balance off a lot of the internals, a lot of roads votes happening as well, just to bring money back into the maintenance area to try and to quell the bleeding in that area at this point in time. But in May, there will be some more votes coming through. Obviously, as we get closer to the end of the financial year, there's more certainty around what the numbers will look like from a capital point of view, as well as an operational point of view. Moving into our bank and investment report, about $12 million in funds available. At 11 million of that is sitting in our investments. It's dropped away a fair bit with a lot of our capital expenditure now ceasing from major projects and the like. You should see that number now start turning the other way. So we're starting to see a bit of traction in regards to our grant funds that are outstanding and remain outstanding. So we've been pushing hard for those funds to be received. And that number now should probably trough, and now we'll see the increase going through, especially with rates revenue coming through in May, and those extra grant funding opportunities coming through. External loans are sitting around the $25.8 million mark, continuing to reduce over the periods. Internal loans, to the end of March, we've got $3.75 million is the balance coming through. Continuing to monitor that till we get to the end of the financial year. Restricted assets, so we've got a schedule in there for restricted assets, continuing to monitor that, continuing to have discussions with the Office of Local Government in regards to that. At the moment, it's anticipated that we are utilising external restricted monies, being the grant funds that we've received in advance. However, that should be positive by the end of the year.
Will that be regularised in the discussions with OLG, so we don't have the same issue at the next audit that we had last time about accessing restricted assets?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the hope is that the Office of Local Government, through the Minister, will actually recognise the situation we're in and not consider it a breach. I've written to Office of Local Government in November, haven't had a response from that. I wrote to the Minister following the March Council meeting where we actually resolved to pursue that further. I've not had a response from that. I have been in regular contact verbally with the Office of Local Government, and I've been assured that the matter is being given consideration, but we've not had any formal response back. What I would point out to councillors too is the table in Mr Phelps' report that shows the $6.6 million of funding owed to council at the same time as the breach is occurring. Interestingly enough, the bottom line item of that $6.62 million tally, there's a line item there of $2.5 million for Main Road 358. The Minister has been out, has cut the ribbon, taken all the accolades for that project, and we haven't got the final funding for that yet. So, you know, the process of getting this funding back into council's accounts is quite burdensome, and it's frustrating, to be honest with you.
And I take it that in each instance where there has been recourse to funds in restricted assets, that each one of those has been raised with OLG, that there's nothing that's, every time that we have dipped into the restricted assets, all of those types of access that have been accounted for and are being put to OLG for regularisation.
So we have a meeting with Office of Local Government roughly monthly, and we are recording this on a monthly basis. So we're not going down to each individual day, but at the end of the month we do a reconciliation. Yes, we have utilised external restricted cash during that month, and we advise the staff at the Office of Local Government. It's part of their performance team. As I say, we're dealing with them on a couple of matters, and we have regular meetings, and it's been monthly at this stage.
I mean, it's obviously far from satisfactory that we have to go down this path, and it is clearly problematic. A, that we're doing it because we're breaching the rules, and B, that we have to do it, or that we're in the position where we're effectively forced to break the rules. This isn't so much a question as more a comment on the situation. I'm probably only just parroting what you've already said. But, it is concerning that we are in this position.
I agree, Councillor, and through you, Mr Chair, the Deputy Mayor and I attended a hearing last Friday. It was the federal inquiry into financial sustainability of local government, and I certainly made this matter, as along with a number of other matters in regard to financial sustainability, but certainly made this matter known to the federal members that were part of that panel last Friday.
Right. So moving forward, and to further that, we have a meeting next week in regards to, with OLG, in regards to the end of month period just gone for April as well. So as the General Manager has alluded to, we have constant meetings with them, and they know exactly where the situation is in regards to our funding. Moving down to our grant funding side of things, as you can see there, we're continuing to chase those funds coming through, and we'll see some traction. We did see some traction in regards to the state disaster money, which was quite good. And then I just need to find out exactly what that was relating to, because their record keeping and telling us what the money was for is not there yet. They just provided some dollars. Capital expenditure side of things, here our revised capital works program has dropped down to $30.5 million. It's decreased from the $33.9 million initially. So going through doing a review of what works will be done by the end of the financial year. To date, we've spent effectively $26.5 million in capital works, which is 87% of the budget coming through. Moving then into our schedules, we've just got the fund and function summary in regards to the 3 funds and different services areas. Overall, there's 0 on the bottom line, which is on page 18, but there's a lot of votes undertaken throughout that summary page. As you can see, the funds have gone down coming through. As I said, that's probably reached the trough now, and that will start now going back the other way to the end of June. One thing that from the budget that they did bring out was that 80% of the financial assistance grants we paid in advance come before the end of June, so that will help our cash flow come the end of June. However, that reduces our cash flow into the following year, so it's like a bit of a cash up before you actually spend it down for next financial year. With the SRV in place, however, though, we've probably backed that lower financial assistance grants off by the increase in our rating revenue coming through. So that way we're sort of like a little bit in front. Moving into our financial investments, as you can see there, $11 million in investments coming through. Overall, the last couple have been quite pleasing, over the 5% mark again. So we've got that going through. The loan schedule on page 21 just gives you an indication of where all those loans are up to coming through. As you can see there on the maturity dates, we will have a number of them coming off in the 29 financial year and the 30 financial year. So those will come off the books from a loan repayment schedule point of view. Capital works, the summary of capital works coming through from pages 22 down to 30 shows you all those projects that we are actually undertaking and where they're actually situated, and where the votes are coming through in the mix, where we've moved a bit of money around for those projects, whether they've been deferred or whether they've been reprioritised into maintenance areas, as we can see in the roads side of things. Then we've got the restricted assets coming through, just the movement in our restricted assets and where our forecasts are. We need a lot more money to come up to those forecasts coming through. So that's a question for council come the end of June. We generally look at our available unrestricted cash and seeing what reserves we'll apply that to. The final items there on page 37 through to 39 is our votes. Now there is quite a substantial number of votes contained in here. They all match off to 0 by the end of the day. But we've got a number of items happening there. So I'll give you a bit of time to cast your eye over those votes and ask any questions that you may see fit.
One that I had, but it's just an accounting point of view.
Yep.
The money that's going to the rail disaster expedition that's been conducted in Aberdeen. That's coming from funds that are allocated for the Voluntary Planning Association, the Dartbrook Fund. But we're accounting that as a debit in the budget variation.
So we've got a debit for the expense.
Yeah.
So you've got the debit for the expense, but then you'll have the credit on the other side of that debit coming through as a contribution.
Yeah.
Which is on the bottom of page 37 there. So it's just a contribution coming in, the funds allocated towards that disaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I see. I have reservations about that, but hence why I voted against it last time.
I think you made those heard at the council meeting, councillor.
All right, councillors, is there any more questions or comments on the financial reports? There not being any, have I got a mover to move all 7 recommendations? Moved Councillor Stiles, seconded Councillor Fraser. All those in favour? It's carried. And move forward, Mr. General Manager, to the property update, please.
Thank you, councillors. I'll take majority of this report as read. You will notice that our commercial leasing is continuing to exceed our budget, which is promising. So we're doing reasonably well in our leased properties. In regard to property development, probably just to bring your attention to a couple of things, 7 Sermon Street is now formally on the market, so we're receiving expressions of interest on that to about the 5th of June. There's been some conversations with the Airport Committee in regard to Lot 44, which is the western corner portion of land at the airport. As part of that, we've developed, sorry, it's Lot 42 is the one we've done the draft plan for. We've developed a draft layout and we're about to put that back to the Airport Committee for their consideration for further industrial style airport supporting industry for that one. Once that's been approved by the Airport Committee, it'll come back to here for final ratification by this committee, but we wanted them to have some ownership and input into that. And councillors, I think you're aware of any of the other movements, particularly the Aberdeen matter. That's been to council already as part of a confidential report.
I'll just ask in relation to the industrial style shed or hangarage that's going out and moved for the airport. Is that going to be built by a private entity, or are we building these things?
So at this stage, we've only gone down the path of trying to work out what a lot layout might look like that would benefit various users at the airport. The actual development of the lots could be done by council or more likely done by a third party. There's a couple of ways of delivering that. We could sell the entire parcel to a third party and they could just develop it in accordance with the lot layout. Then they would sell the lots as and when they became available. We would get our money up front, but probably a lesser value. The alternative is we undertake the development ourselves using contractors. We take probably a higher risk and then we progressively sell lots off the plan. That's how the current lots have been developed. They were developed and then council has sold them progressively as we've had purchases. To be honest with you though, we haven't gone even down any of those models yet and explored that. We're just simply working out what's the best lot model that will work, we think, in conjunction with some advice from the users. Then we'll come back to council and we'll have those discussions about best way of delivering.
Because it must be utterly trite at this stage to point out that council has had experience building sheds at the airport, which has been unhappy, and it's possibly not something that we really ought to be engaging in as building more sheds ourselves.
Yes, so I would point out it's not our intention to build any sheds. If we were to do anything, our expectation, or my expectation, would be our development would stop at the individual lot development selling that to private individuals, and then they would lodge their DAs and build sheds. So there's a number of steps to the DA process. The first is developing the lots, and that's probably as far as I would recommend going, but I haven't even got to that stage. I'm probably leaning more towards selling the entire parcel with possibly a DA approval to make it more valuable and enticing to a developer, and letting them take the risk of development from that point.
I know we're coming on later in the agenda to. I know we're coming on later in the agenda to further proposed uses of community land for development purposes. So again, I'll probably have something to say about that as well.
All right, any further comment or questions from councillors on the property update? There being no further, have I got a mover to note the report there? Move Councillor Fraser, second Councillor Stiles. All those in favour? Carried. And move forward to the grants report, just for notation.
Yeah, and again, councillors, you can see the table there. Unsuccessful in the Hart Foundation grant, successful in the Transport Infrastructure Scheme, which is for effectively bus shelters. And there's a considerable amount of grants in the system that we're waiting on responses for.
I'll probably make the comment, yeah, there certainly is a large amount of grant applications here. So obviously our grant officer is working awfully hard to stay abreast of all of this. We've got a mover to note. Move Councillor Fraser, second Councillor Stiles. All those in favour? Carried. We'll move forward now to something a bit different with the property strategy review of potential land development. Mr. General Manager,
yeah,
if you want to run us through this.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Councillors, these parcels have been in council's ownership for a long time. They haven't previously been considered as part of our land strategy. We've, I guess, shied away from them. They're a little bit unusual in the fact that they are classified as operational land. So if you remember, there's two classifications for land, operational or community. These are operational, which means that council can dispose of the land somewhat easier than it can through a community categorisation. But despite that, their land zoning is recreational. So it's sort of got a bit of a mix of categorisation, but zoned such that it's recreational. For that reason, we haven't typically looked at these parcels of land for development in the past, and the expectation is that the community would be somewhat opposed to some or all of it. However, we have received a couple of requests from community members to investigate it, which came via the Mayor. As a result, we've put this report to this committee just to see if there's any appetite for this committee, and the recommendation is simply not to, I guess, go straight into an immediate disposal, but probably to seek some further community consultation before we jumped at this one. In short, the parcels of land, there's a number of configurations that you could do. You could sell the land in its entirety, which is not part of the recommendation. If council were interested in this, there's a couple of ways that you could, I guess, sell one parcel in its entirety and another one in portions. I'm happy to take you through those options, but they were explained in the report, so I'm assuming council's got a bit of a feel for what's being proposed, but I can speak further to that if you've got further questions. So yeah, I think probably happy to leave it with councillors to provide any guidance or comment or questions.
Well, I mean, if we're tired of aggravating Mary War and Aberdeen and Murrurundi and all the other parts of the Shire, and how we deal with the community land, I suppose we might as well start in on Scone. What would the consultation look like? Would it just be would it be a period where people can make submissions? Would we put it to an open council meeting so people could come and address the council on the point, because I would imagine there will be some interested parties in SATA in particular who will have probably strongly held views on this.
Councillors, my view was we'd do our normal consultation period for 28 days, we go through our normal channels, but I thought in this one we would at least contact the adjoining property owners by mail, just to let them know so that they couldn't say that they weren't aware. I suspect I know what the adjoining owners' responses will be, but I think it's courteous just to let them make an offer. Look, I don't know what people's thoughts are, but I suspect there'll be some opposition to this, but there is a need for housing too, so there may be some support for this in some form or fashion. As I said, the second parcel of land, which is the parcel shown in figure 5, is an unusually shaped block, but it may lend itself to unit type development rather than a subdivision. So there may be some support for one development and not others, I guess.
Is the proposal that this committee would be the committee, if we vote on this, that we're then saying that council as a whole will undertake further community consultation, or is this something that we're going to refer back to council as a whole at the next meeting, or maybe the one after? As I say, my concern is that this is, without a shadow of a doubt, going to create some immense interest from SATA in particular. I don't want there to be any sort of impression that council is even testing the waters surreptitiously. So in my view, I don't have a difficulty with the community consultation, but I would like to be assured that the community consultation will be quite extensive in the sense that it's well advertised and that people have the opportunity to come to a council meeting and express their support or otherwise for the proposal. That my concern is there should be not even a sniff that we might be testing the waters quietly to see whether we can get away with it.
In response to your question, Councillor, the recommendation is that this would go to the next council meeting and council would make a decision. The recommendation is that this committee would recommend to the council to undertake further community consultation. You can change that recommendation to the council if you wish, but it's simply undertaking community consultation. Staff have recognised that this is probably going to be contentious, and that's why we're saying take a slowly approach if you're going to go down this path.
Could the recommendation, well, as opposed to just voting on the recommendation, I would propose that we just refer the question in its entirety to the full council meeting.
Yeah, you could change the recommendation that this matter be put directly to council or something to the fact for council consideration.
Yeah, I just think that the wording of it at the moment, if we approve it, it sort of gives, it looks like we as a smaller committee or as a committee are green lighting this process, and I think it really should be something that goes to a full meeting, because it is going to, I have no doubt this is going to be contentious. I have no doubt that there will be extensive interest from SATA and probably parts of Scone as well, because it's the old story. It gives the impression of the first step on the slippery slope. So I think it is something that I think we need to be very, very open about this from the outset if we're going to even explore this possibility.
Robin, would you mind just bringing the recommendation up? So the recommendation is that council undertake further community consultation to gauge community interest in the various options for the future use of lots 43, 59 of DP 245072 and lot 18 of DP 262896, and a report be provided back to council on the outcome of that community consultation. So more than happy if this committee changes the staff recommendation. That's at the committee's discretion.
Well, my proposal would be that the whole question is referred to council for the consideration by the full council. That we just refer this whole question to council.
Do you want to just bring that up, Robin?
So your motion, if brought forward, would be that,
The following question in its entirety is referred to council.
okay, so,
Just add a
so
line
the
in.
question would be to undertake, further community consultation to gauge interest and to be brought back to following.
Yeah, so
council
my
meetings.
proposal would be that the recommendation remains effectively in its present form, but we add a line on before it, that the following question is referred to the full council meeting for consideration, colon, and then.
Yeah.
So we're just adding in
So-
the whole of the following question is referred to council for full consideration.
So you'd ask for a deferral of the question to.
Well, no, it's a
council.
removal of the question to full council. We're not deferring the resolution of the question. We're saying that the question is, rather than resolved by us, is put to the full council
Yeah.
meeting for discussion.
Yeah.
So simply referring the whole, that our resolution is simply that the whole question is referred to the full council.
Okay. Yeah. Well, do you want to move that?
I'll move that.
Move that. We've got a seconder on that motion. Seconded. Councillors. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Well, probably to the start, really.
To the beginning. Yeah.
So before we, right at the start, that the following question is referred in its entirety to the full council for consideration. To the full council. And then colon, full council for consideration, yeah, for consideration. Colon. Yeah, colon, so the punctuation, that council. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Just take out that council.
Or that this committee, sorry, that this committee refer the following question. Yeah.
Yep.
The following, yeah, recommendation, or question, recommendation. Issue.
Right, are you happy with that wording there,
Yeah.
Councillor Fraser? While it's in front of us, considerations on this. Now it looks like we've got an appetite to put it forward to council, and I'd support that. We currently have gone from 0 development blocks to quite the glut of development blocks, haven't we? And
Well, certainly when the Gundy Road development hits its straps, it's going to be a considerable influx of blocks on the market. And noting the changes to negative gearing rules that are coming in the next 12 months, that's probably going to have some significant effect on the attractiveness of building new buildings rather than buying existing ones, certainly for people with investment funds.
yeah, just on the blocks, the interesting blocks, SADA, without these two, will have no green spaces, I will note. Now, in all fairness, my house is nearly on this picture, and I didn't know about this block in Nyara Street. So it's an interesting one that we've brought forward. Certainly, Sheedy Park has obviously been developed in the original development as that green space, and is a nice functional space, and maintenance-wise, it's a matter of mowing. It's got no real facilities on it. I have walked past it often and thought, gee, kids' play area might be nice there, but you know, there's more things for us to maintain. But they're interesting. I think they're interesting questions for the community to ask of themselves, and what we are. And I endorse putting it forward to council to have further discussion. I think it's an interesting discussion we can have.
Part of the interesting thing is that these aren't the only green spaces in Scone which are of a similar sort of nature. There are other smaller parks in other parts of Scone as well. They're technically parks, but there's not much going on in them. So it's sort of the situation where I think the community would have some interest in having a say, because, as I say, once we go down this path, there are other smaller parks that could go the same way.
Yeah,
It's probably a useful discussion to have whether there is appetite on the part of the residents to develop those or to maintain them as green space. And I know that these Sheedy Park, the absence of equipment doesn't mean you can't go out to the football and that sort of thing. You know,
absolutely.
It's still somewhere for the kids to go and whatever kids. I know when I was a child, going out to Sata, there was kicking of football and taking out of water pistols and that sort of thing. There's plenty of things to do, but whether kids still are interested in that, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting conversation to have. We've obviously overspent in the parks and gardens for as long as I've been on council, and that's because we have a lot of space, and most people rely on motor vehicle transport now and rely on, I know Bill Rose is exceptionally well used, and people accept that centralisation of green spaces as well. So I think that's going to be a further conversation to have. We just have a conversation, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We'll work this out for next time. But anyway, but it does give, the conversation does give a precursor to community consultation, and that's what it's about at the end of the day, is what community want out of these assets. But if I can bring so we've got a mover and a seconder. I think you've got that down, Robin. Seconded Councillor Stoles. And all those in favour? I think the ayes have it, and we'll move forward to the request for donations. So there's 3 requests this week.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. You'll see out of the 3, 2 were successful. One is still some way off, being the Upper Hunter Veteran Golf Association. We have provided them with donation in the past. At the last time they requested a donation, I was very clear that I'd be more supportive if they started having their event in the Upper Hunter Shire Council area rather than just simply at Muswellbrook each time. I believe they're taking some of that on board, but they have not yet made a formal application for the 2027 year, so that's just a pending one.
I don't know if we've got questions or comments. If not, have I got a mover for the donations? Move Councillor Stiles. Seconded Councillor Williamson. All those in favour? Carried. And just finally, responses to questions. I'm sure councillors have read the responses there. If we could have a mover for notation. Moved Councillor Stiles, seconded Councillor Williamson. All those in favour? And carried. And that being the final item on the agenda, I thank staff and councillors for their attendance today, and I wish everybody well at the Scone Cup. May your bets be forever where they wish to be. If we could call the meeting closed at now 10:11, please, Robin. Thank you. Thank you all.